Rian Cole worked in the forgotten shipyard ring of the orbital station. The air smelled of oil and hot metal. Rust marked the rails, loose cables hung from the ceiling. The floor shook whenever a heavy ship docked. Most workers had requested transfer long ago. But Rian stayed. Machines were simple to him. People were not. His days were quiet. Broken hulls in, repaired hulls out. He patched fuel lines, replaced cracked plating. Argued with old software that froze at random. Outside the narrow bay window, a giant orange planet turned in slow storms. Small ships moved like bright insects in the dark. Life here was low pay and low status. But it was steady, and it was peaceful for him. The change began when the lights flickered. Once, twice, then the loudspeakers crackled. The station voice spoke in a flat tone. "Attention all maintenance staff. Secure your work areas, military cargo arriving. Do not interfere, do not observe, do not engage." The message repeated, once and cut off. The old shipyard ring fell into a tense silence. Military cargo never came to this side of the station. This was the ring for scrap and transport wrecks, not for secret loads. Rian wiped his hands on his worksuit and looked at the door. A small knot formed in his stomach. He did not like new orders dropping into his safe routine. New orders meant new risks. The main door slid open with a hard hiss. 2 guards entered first. Black armor shining under the bay lights, rifles held ready. Between them walked a woman in a dark command uniform. Her rank badge gleamed. Her eyes were calm and cold. She studied the bay like she was inspecting a tool she already owned. "Engineer Rian Cole," she said, not asking, only naming him. Her voice was not loud, but it filled the room. It sounded like a voice that expected to be obeyed. "That is me," Rian said, keeping his tone flat. Calm voices caused less trouble. He had learned that more than once. "A classified crate will be placed in this bay," the woman said. "You will keep its life support systems running until transfer. You will not open it. You will not scan it. You will not discuss it. You will watch the readings and repair any failure. Nothing more." One guard handed Rian a small control tablet. A cluster of numbers glowed on the screen: heart rate, oxygen, temperature. Pressure, all active, all tagged only as Cargo 7A. No name, no species, no extra details. Biological cargo, Rian said before he could stop himself. The pattern of numbers was too familiar to miss. The woman's eyes narrowed a little. "You do not need to describe it," she replied. "You only need to keep it alive. If these readings fail and we lose this asset, your career ends in this room. Do you understand?" Rian felt the threat under her smooth tone. He saw the slight tilt of the guards' rifles. "Not much, just enough. I understand," he said. "I will keep it alive." The woman gave a short nod. "Good. Cameras are watching this bay. Follow the rules," she said. Then she turned and walked out. The guards followed. The door shut behind them with a heavy metallic thud that echoed in the small room. Silence returned, but it no longer felt easy. The air seemed thicker. Rian looked at the tablet again. The numbers glowed steady and calm. For a while he simply watched them, telling himself this was just another system, another machine to babysit. The floor shook as docking clamps locked onto a new ship. Rian went to the window and saw a black military transport attached to the station. No markings, no colors, just dull metal and sharp angles. It looked more like a weapon than a ship, and it made the gas giant behind it look smaller. Robotic lifters rolled into his bay, guiding a single massive crate. It was long and wide, almost the length of the room. Thick alloy panels covered its sides. Heavy bolts sealed every edge. Warning symbols glowed in hard paint. Danger, biohazard, high volt. As it passed close to him, the hair on his arms rose. The crate hummed with a low vibration. Static pricked his skin through the fabric of his suit. Whatever was inside was not simple cargo. It was active, strong, and trapped behind metal and code. The lifters locked the crate to the center of the bay. Magnetic clamps gripped the floor rails. A thick power cable connected it to the wall. The tablet chimed in his hand as fresh data flowed in. Heart rate, stable. Oxygen, stable. Temperature, normal. Stay that way. 7A, Rian muttered, talking to the numbers as he always did. For a short time nothing changed. He checked the anchors, checked the bay power. Listened to the usual hum of old systems. The station shook once under some distant maneuver and settled again. Everything seemed normal, at least on the outside. Then the lights dimmed, longer than before. A soft alarm beeped from the tablet. Rian lowered his tools and stared at the screen. Heart rate slipping down, oxygen falling, pressure starting to jump in sharp spikes. The calm lines were bending into ugly shapes. "Come on," he whispered. He checked the bay power board. All green, no dropped lines, no damaged fuses. The fault was not in his walls. The fault was inside the crate. Inside whatever they had locked in there. A new warning flashed red. Life support failure. Another line appeared under it. Neural system overheat. Neural system. So the thing inside had a complex brain wired into machines. The heart rate dropped again. Rian had seen that pattern in the medical wing once. A slow slide. A brief fight, then a flat end. Whoever or whatever lay inside the crate was moving toward that end. A faint sound came from the metal shell. A slow scrape, metal on metal, not loud, not wild, just weak. As if something heavy tried and failed to move. Red status lights along the side began to pulse faster. Rian's throat tightened. The woman's words echoed in his mind. "Do not open the crate, do not interfere." He stood there, watching the lines fall, jaw clenched. He remembered a wounded worker on a stretcher years ago. Everyone had waited for orders, nobody had moved first. The man had died on the floor while procedure stayed perfect. The memory burned behind his eyes. Another scrape sounded. Then a muffled cry reached him, half growl, half broken voice. It did not sound like rage, it sounded like pain. Real and sharp and trapped in metal, Rian swore softly under his breath. He crossed the bay to the wall panel and opened the camera controls. His fingers moved fast. He set the internal feed to a short replay loop. 10 seconds of an empty bay, played again and again. Anyone watching would see a quiet, untouched room. He turned back to the crate. His heart pounded. "If I open this, I am finished," he whispered. "If I do nothing, something in there dies." The tablet beeped again. Heart rate still dropping, oxygen slipping toward a red line. He placed his hand on the cold metal wall. The hum beneath his palm felt weaker now, like a slow, fading breath. "I am not a soldier," he said quietly. "I am a mechanic. I fix things." His fingers slid along the edge until they found a narrow access panel, hidden under old warning marks. He popped it open with a slim tool. Inside he saw manual locks and a small control module. Someone had built this system, and systems built by people always had a way in. He traced the cables with his eyes and found where the lock touched the station grid. He unplugged one connector and slipped in a bypass from his own wall panel. For 3 short seconds, the crate believed a false command, authorization granted. Internal locks clicked in fast sequence. 3 seconds only, but 3 seconds were enough. Rian hit the release. Seals hissed as they broke. Cold white fog rolled out and wrapped around his boots. A sharp chemical smell filled the air. Soft red lights glowed inside the crate. Rian lifted the top panel and looked in. He froze. The shape inside was huge, folded tight, chained by thick cables and metal plates. It was a dragon. White scales covered its body. Bright even in the red glow, horns swept back from its head. A heavy metal collar gripped its neck. Tiny status lights blinked along its surface. Wires ran from the collar down its spine into plates bolted into bone. The skin around each plate was scarred and burned. The dragon lay almost still, Then its eyes opened. Deep red, clear and bright. They locked onto Rian at once, and he forgot to breathe. Those were not the eyes of a mindless beast. They were aware, tired, and full of pain. He glanced at the tablet. Heart rate still falling, oxygen close to danger. The dragon watched him in silence. No roar, no snap of jaws, only a steady measuring stare. Rian stepped closer to the open crate. He saw a faint tremor in its jaw. A tiny twitch at the very tip of its tail. Most of its body was trapped under cable and steel. "I am here to fix the life support," he said softly. "I do not want to hurt you." The dragon blinked once. Slow and clear, the movement felt deliberate. Like a single word, yes, high above, a small light on the ceiling shifted from green to red. Some silent system had noticed his override. A quiet signal left the bay and entered the station network. Somewhere an alert would appear. Somewhere boots would start moving toward his door. Rian did not know that yet. He knew only the failing numbers on his screen and the eyes in front of him. A paralyzed albino dragon wired to cold metal. If he walked away now, it would die. If he stayed and acted, his own life might break apart. His grip tightened on his tools. The dragon's gaze did not move. The bay hummed with weak power and soft alarms. Everything seemed to hold its breath, balanced on his choice. Rian took a slow breath and stepped closer to the wounded spine. He reached for the first cable that fed the life support cluster, and in that moment, with camera feeds looping lies and danger waking in distant corridors, he chose not to obey. Rian stood beside the open crate and tried to slow his breathing. The tablet in his hand showed new readings, heart rate up, oxygen steady, pressure almost normal again. A minute ago the dragon had been sliding toward death. Now it hung on a thin but real line of safety. It was not much, but it was something he could hold on to. The creature's red eyes followed his every movement. Most of its long white body lay locked under metal plates and tight cables. Wings folded so hard they almost looked broken. A thick metal collar gripped its neck. Small lights blinking along the band like cold insects. The whole crate hummed with a low, nervous sound. It felt less like a box and more like a machine wrapped around a trapped mind. "I am trying to help you," Rian said softly. His voice sounded rough in the quiet bay. "I did not put you here. I only fix things." He had no idea if the dragon understood his language, but speaking kept his hands from shaking. Fear made fingers clumsy, and clumsy fingers killed people around heavy machines. He leaned over the inner wall and traced the lines with his eyes. The clear tubes were easy to read. They carried air, fluids, heat. He checked valves and clamps, found one tiny leak, and closed it with a quick twist of his tool. Then he looked at the darker cables, thick and heavy, wrapped in old warning marks. They ran from the crate wall into the collar and the spine plates. These were not feeding the body, they were feeding control. Near the base of the collar line he found a narrow hatch, half hidden under rust and grime. He flicked it open and found a small control unit inside. 3 labels glowed above 3 dials: neural damp, pain gate, motor lock. All 3 lights shone hard green. All 3 dials sat high near their limits. Rian's stomach twisted. Someone had built a small box that could choke thought, flood every nerve with pain, and freeze every muscle in this huge body. He stared at the dials for a long moment. If he turned them too far, the dragon might die at once. If he left them alone, the creature would stay trapped inside its own flesh, able to think but never move. He looked at the red eyes watching him. They were sharp, not dull. "If I change this, it may hurt," he whispered. "But if I do nothing, you stay frozen. I will try to do the least damage I can." The dragon blinked once, slow and controlled. And Rian chose to take that as yes. He drew a deep breath, set his thumb on the motor lock dial, and turned it down a single small step. The collar gave a brief buzz. Plates along the spine crackled and settled. For one long second, nothing else happened. Rian felt cold sweat run down his back. Then the tip of the dragon's tail gave a tiny twitch. One claw scraped weakly under a cable. The tablet beeped as heart rate rose a little and nerve activity climbed from flat to uneven, risky, but alive. Good, Rian breathed. You can still move. The dragon's gaze brightened, and its next slow blink felt sharper, more focused, like a quiet word at the edge of his mind. He did not know if he imagined that, but it pushed him to keep going. A new alert flashed across the top of the tablet. Day 12 inspection, ETA 20 minutes. Commander Vale was coming back. She would not come alone. She would bring soldiers and scanners. She would see any change he failed to hide, to her. This would not be mercy. It would be interference with a military asset. And the station had quick, simple answers for that kind of crime. Rian glanced up at the ceiling camera. The loop he had set still played. 10 seconds of old footage, showing a closed crate and an empty bay. That might fool a bored watcher on another level, but it would not fool a live officer standing in front of him. He wiped his face with his sleeve, feeling cold mist and sweat on his skin. He had only minutes to help the dragon and then erase the proof that he had tried. He turned back to the panel and studied the pain gate dial. The scars around the neck and spine already told him how this system worked. It was not just about stopping motion, it was about punishment. He had seen cheap shock collars on mine animals before. And the memory made his jaw clench. This was the same idea, built for something huge and intelligent. Only a little, he said. More to himself than to the dragon. I will turn this only a little. He moved the dial the smallest fraction down. The dragon flinched, but not like it had when pain hit. This was different. Muscles along its neck loosened. Its jaw unclenched. Its next breath came deeper, less ragged on the tablet. Wild spikes in its stress field sank into softer waves. It was still suffering, but it was no longer drowning. Rian let his shoulders drop a little. This was as far as he dared push the dial for now. Then something slammed into his thoughts. For a single heartbeat, he saw a sky full of smoke and burning ships. A white body tumbling through black clouds, wings tearing under fire, air screamed past. Then the ground rushed up, impact exploded through every nerve. For that instant, Rian felt his own bones shatter and his lungs rip. He gasped and grabbed the crate wall. And the vision snapped away, leaving him shaking and breathless. He stared at the dragon. That was you, he whispered. Your memory. No sound came from its jaws, but a faint echo brushed the inside of his skull. Not a word, just a tired, steady yes. The link between them was thin and fragile, but it was real. He was no longer touching only wires and metal. He was touching a wounded mind. At the edge of his thoughts, more shadows tried to form, hints of sea, sunlight, a younger life. But Rian pushed them away before they could open. If he let them flood him, he would freeze until the inspection team walked in. They took you, he said quietly. They turned you into property. The dragon's next breath shook, and he could no longer tell where his anger ended and the dragon's began. The inspection timer ticked down on the tablet. 19 minutes, 18, then 17. Time slid away. Rian shut the hatch over the dials and closed the panels in a careful order, leaving only narrow gaps he could open later, a few of his own cables vanished into old bundles, so a quick glance would see only clutter. Standing over the crate, he knew a tag like Cargo 7A was not enough. You need a name, he said softly. He studied the pale scales and curved horns. One word felt right. Ivory, he said. You are Ivory. For a moment nothing happened. Then a warmer feeling brushed his thoughts, curious and almost gentle, outside. Heavy footsteps sounded in the corridor, and Rian wiped his hands, hid his tools, and took his place beside the crate to wait. Boots hit the deck outside the bay. Drawing closer in a sharp rhythm, Rian stood beside the sealed crate with the tablet in his hands. Camera feed was looping. Behind the metal, Ivory lay still under cables, eyes closed because Rian had begged him to stay quiet. The bay door slid open. Commander Vale stepped in with 2 guards. Status of Cargo 7A, she said at once. Rian kept his gaze on the tablet. Life support stable, he replied. Heart rate in range, oxygen normal, no faults. His chest felt tight. But his tone stayed flat. Vale walked up to the crate and laid one gloved hand on the shell. "Any anomalies, any changes to housing or feed?" she asked. "Only a small dip when your transport docked, ma'am," Rian said. "Old wiring. I adjusted the grid to protect the cargo line. I did not open the crate." The last line was a clean lie wrapped in true ones. A guard swept the handheld scanner over the metal. Blue light slid across seams and bolts. The device hummed on Rian's screen. Ivory's heart rate jumped, then settled. The dragon did not move. The scanner beeped. "Shell intact, no breach. Power draw normal," the guard said. Rian let out a slow breath he hoped no one saw. If the scan had searched for subtle shifts in the control lines, it might have caught his work, but it looked only for cracks and heat. Commander Vale took the tablet and scrolled through the log. She paused at the earlier spike. "Explain this," she said. "Docking surge," Rian answered. "Your ship hit old circuits." "I rerouted load. You can see the correction here." He pointed at the stabilizing line. His hand stayed steady because he forced it to. She watched a moment, then nodded. "You kept the asset stable," she said. "Good. This crate is worth more than this ring." "Engineer, if we lose it, we will not be gentle about why." The threat was smooth and sharp. She turned to leave, then looked up at the ceiling. "Increase camera coverage in this bay," she told one guard. "No blind corners, full visual on this cargo." The words hit Rian harder than anything else. More cameras meant less room to act. "Yes, ma'am," the guard said. He moved to the wall panel and added feeds. On Rian's display, small red icons appeared. One above the crate, one by the door, one near the side wall. Vale left with the second guard. The last soldier finished wiring the new lenses and walked out. The door shut. The old hum of machines filled the bay again, but the silence did not feel friendly. Rian stared at the crate. "Still with me, Ivory," he whispered. He checked the readings. Heart rate steady, oxygen strong. The faint pressure in his head told him the dragon was awake. Holding still under steel, he could not smash locks with new cameras staring. But he could not just watch numbers either. He needed to know what was planned. He went to his console and opened the station network, pushing past normal access with every trick he knew. Military files were locked, but tags bled around them. He followed codes linked to the crate until one name froze him. Project Leashwing, the line labeled Ivory as a bioweapon. Status, transfer approved. Destination, core facility. Date only days away. Details were hidden, but the shape was clear. A project to leash wings and turn them into property. Fragments of Ivory's memories brushed his mind again. A fall through burning sky, a cliff and sea. A small human child reaching up, then cold rooms, bright tools. Metal pressed into bone, if Rian did nothing. The core lab would finish the work these scars had started. "I cannot free you yet," he said under his breath. "But I can hurt their plan." He was a mechanic, and mechanics knew how to make systems fail. He opened the security tools and pulled up the camera map. He could not shut them down. That would scream in red letters. But maybe he did not need to. In an old folder, he found a forgotten test script. Once used to replay footage with delay. Someone had left it there and never cleaned it up. "Lucky for us," Rian murmured. He rewrote the script so that each camera in this bay sent video that was always a moment behind real time. To a guard, it would look normal. To Rian, it would be a thin pocket of time where his hand could move if he kept it close to the metal. He ran the patch. A brief warning blinked, then sank into green. The system accepted the change as a harmless test. On his monitor, he saw his fingers move, then saw them again half a heartbeat later. "Now," he said. He walked back to the crate and opened a narrow seam along one side, just wide enough for his arm and a slim tool. Cold air touched his skin. He brushed warm scale under a brace. Ivory's mind brushed his in return. "Confused but steady. I am working on the leash." Not on you, Rian whispered. He found one power coupling in the collar feed by feel. He did not rip it free. Instead, he loosened it a fraction. Enough that it would strain when someone pushed the collar hard. He slid a tiny resistor into another line, shifting how fast pain commands could move. He altered one timing contact so that under full control, the motor lock signal might stumble. Each change was small and easy to blame later on age or stress, but all pointed at one goal: someday. When someone tried to drive Ivory like a machine, the collar would falter first. Every few seconds, Rian pulled his hand back and checked the nearest lens, making sure the delayed feed still played, making sure no alarm flashed on his tablet. He kept going until he felt he had pushed his luck as far as he dared. At last he eased his arm free and pressed the panel closed. He smoothed the seam until it matched the old scars. On the tablet, Ivory's vital lines held steady. The touch in his mind shifted, carrying a thin thread of hope inside the fear. "That is all I can do today," Rian said. Stepping back, "I cannot break you out yet. But their chain is weaker than they think." His words were low but fierce. He powered down his console in the normal order, logged a dull report about grid balance and routine checks, and walked out of the bay at a steady pace behind him. Fresh cameras watched a quiet metal crate in an old ring under that skin. An albino dragon lay chained to wires that now carried hidden faults. And far above, in locked files and proud plans, Project Leashwing still looked perfect, blind to the fact that a single human mechanic had just started to tear it apart from inside. Rian's next shift started with a cold message on his band. "Report to Security Room 5 priority." He walked there at a steady pace. Ivory sat in the back of his thoughts, quiet. Security Room 5 held a metal table, 2 chairs, a wall screen. Commander Vale sat waiting. A guard stood in the corner with a rifle. "Engineer Cole, sit," she said. He did. "You have been in this ring 6 years," she began. "You keep old systems alive. You do not cause trouble." She tapped the table. The wall screen showed logs and diagrams, red marks around Bay 12. "Until yesterday, you rewired power. Touched cameras, woke an old test script," she said. "All near Cargo 7A, explain." "Docking shock hit the ring," Rian said. "Your heavy ship shook bad wiring. I patched what I had to so the cargo stayed alive." "You told me that was the job." "Did you open the crate?" Vale asked. Her voice flat. The guard's rifle rose a little. Rian met her eyes. "I did not open the crate while you were present." "Commander," he said, "I worked on lines. Not on the shell." Truth twisted around a gap, her mouth tightened. "Clever answer," she said. "I do not enjoy clever men in forgotten places." Then she drew a small data chip from her pocket and slid it across the table. "This is a limited brief on Project Leashwing. Engineering view only," she said. "Read it. You will see why this cargo matters, and why I will not allow unsanctioned changes. Cooperate and you keep your post. Resist and you vanish into a code. Understand?" Rian picked up the chip. "Understood," he said. Vale leaned closer. "Remember," she added, "the thing in that crate is not your patient, not your friend. It is a weapon. Tools do not get choices." At the back of his skull, Ivory flinched. Rian felt a flash of cold rooms and tight chains. Then the link shrank again. "You are dismissed," Vale said. The guard opened the door. Rian walked out with the chip in his fist. On the way back to the ring, he stopped at an empty maintenance console and slid the chip into a side port. Text filled the small screen. Project Leashwing. Phase 3, neural suppression, high. Personality drift, acceptable. Memory purge and overwrite at core facility. Command template locked, remote control range. Fleet level. Rian stared. "Purge and overwrite," he muttered. "They are not just chaining you, Ivory. They plan to erase you and drive your body." A hot echo answered. Not in his ears, but in his mind, fear and rage, then one bright memory. Blue sea, a cliff, a human child with arms raised. A white dragon circling above, joy from both, then harsh light, clamps. The first bite of metal into bone. The image broke, leaving his hands shaking. He pulled the chip out and stuffed it away. "You are not their blank weapon," he whispered. The link hummed with rough agreement. At Bay 12, 2 more guards stood outside. "Commander ordered a live test," one said. "You monitor life support, no touching the crate, inside." Vale stood by a black control case wired to the collar feed. "We will stress the control network," she said. "Full signal, then step down. We confirm this dragon answers commands, if it cannot be driven." "It is useless." Rian moved to his console, ivory pressed against his mind. "Tense and ready, hold on," Rian thought at him. "I broke some of their leash, not enough. But it may turn their power back on them." Vale sent the first pulse. On his hidden panel, the pain gate line flared as current rushed through the path he had weakened. The signal hit the crooked coupling. Split and bounced. For one long second, nothing moved. Then the crate shook once. Ivory's body jerked under the metal. And a blast of pain slammed through their link so hard that Rian almost fell. Alarms screamed from the control case. Red lights flashed. Feedback on the leash channel. Vale snapped. She shot Rian a sharp look. "Your ring cannot carry a clean command," she said. "I told Central this place is junk." He kept his voice level. "You are driving a war caller through cargo wiring older than me," he said. "Full power gives you noise and bounce. I can brace the run if you stop hitting it like that. If not, you will tear your own system." She looked at the readouts, then at the crate. "Life signs," she demanded. Rian blinked away the last echo of pain and checked the tablet. Heart rate fierce but steady, oxygen high, neural field rough but not crashing. "The asset is stressed but stable," he said. He would not call Ivory a weapon. Inside his mind, Ivory clung to him. Teeth bared against invisible agony. Rian pushed calm images down the link, his own face steady, the bay quiet. The panic bled off into a hard anger. Veil cut power to the case. "No more full tests on this station," she said. "We recalibrate at the core. I will not risk a loose dragon in a junk ring." To the guards. "Double lock this bay, nobody enters alone. Not even our helpful engineer." She left with the case and one soldier. The others took posts outside. Rian walked up to the crate and placed his palm on the metal. "Ivory," he whispered, "can you hear me?" The answer hit fast. He saw himself through dragon eyes, small, tired, one hand on the shell. Then the pain burst replayed in sharp flashes like lightning behind closed lids. He swallowed hard. "I am sorry," he said. "I tried to break their leash." "Not you." The feeling inside shifted, rage narrowed into aim. Ivory sent a new imagery and saw, from a low angle, a cargo tunnel under Bay 12, walls close, lights dim. He saw gouges where the crate had slid, saw a side passage and an old junction door half sealed. Beyond that, a small service lock near an outer dock. Soldiers had dragged the crate that way once. Ivory had watched counting turns. "You remember the path," Rian breathed. The reply was a firm, simple feeling. Yes. He leaned his forehead against the crate, speaking so low that even new mics would hear only blur. "Then we make a plan," he whispered. "They think this ring is trash. They think I am slow. They think you are only a tool. We prove them wrong. I will find the tunnel access from above. You keep the map from below. When they move you again." We cut away from their route. The link hummed, painful but steady, outside. Guards shifted and yawned, somewhere bright. Vale wrote a short report about noisy circuits on her files. Project Leashwing still looked safe and controlled. She did not yet see that in this old ring, a human mechanic and a chained albino dragon had already turned her weapon into the start of an escape. 3 days passed before Commander Vale ordered another test. In that time Rian lived two lives. To the station he was a quiet mechanic in a dying ring, tightening bolts and signing boring reports. In his head he was a traitor in training, planning how to steal a military asset. He studied cargo maps, watched guard patterns, traced the route Ivory remembered through the tunnels. Every spare moment he marked tiny notes only he understood. Rust near Tunnel 6 meant panel loose, fast access. Sensor drift and outer lock meant camera blind spot if pushed. He could not walk into Bay 12 whenever he wanted. Guards and cameras saw to that, but the ring was old and only he truly knew it. That gave him cracks to work in. He shifted power routes by a few percent, added a hidden backup line to the cargo tunnel doors, swapped labels so only he knew which breaker fed which hatch. To others it looked like a tired man keeping junk alive, not someone building an escape route for a dragon. At night the link grew sharper. When he closed his eyes, he felt cold metal under Ivory's scales, the ache of wings pinned for too long, the echo of wind from old memories of flight. Together they walked the escape path again and again, Ivory sending the feel of each turn, Rian matching it to his map, a ladder, a bend, a side hatch that had stuck once. On the fourth day his wristband crackled. Engineer Cole. Report to Bay 12, Vale's voice said. He wiped his hands and went inside. The crate sat where it always did. The black control case was bolted beside it. Commander Vale stood near it. Phase 2 calibration, she said. We test motor response. You watch life support and stress, if anything fails. I will assume sabotage. Rian took his place at the console. The link stirred at once, Ivory awake under steel. His fear brushed Rian's thoughts, sharp but controlled. We hold, Rian thought. Survive. Learn what they can do. A brief pulse of heat answered. Vale raised motor lock in small steps. Command Pulse A, lift head, she said. Signals pushed into the collar. The damaged lines Rian had altered carried them badly, but not badly enough to fail. Through the link he felt Ivory strain, giving just enough movement to satisfy the pattern. The dragon's neck lifted a little, then stopped. Pain pricked at the base of Rian's skull. On his screen, heart rate climbed but stayed in range. Response detected, he said aloud. No critical stress. Command Pulse B. Raise right for limb, Vale ordered. Inside the crate, metal creaked. Clamps shook as weight shifted. The neural field spiked. Then leveled. Ivory moved, but not smoothly. His will kept grinding against the collar's commands. Rian pushed calm down the link, simple images of steady breath and still water. Give them just enough, he thought. Do not burn yourself now, Ivory answered with a low flare that settled into focus. Then Vale changed tactics. Command Matrix C. Preflight stance, she said. This time she pushed a complex lab pattern, written by people who thought wings were just numbers. It was meant to pull spine and wings into launch position on command. For a heartbeat, the pattern hit something deep. Ivory's mind flashed with the ghost of open air. Then the resistor Rian had hidden did its work. The surge choked, timing slipped, commands piled up. The collar sputtered, plates buzzed, lock joints tried to move in two directions at once. Ivory snarled, sound crushed by metal. Pain and fury slammed through the link so hard Rian had to grab the console. Alarms chirped from both boards. Instability in motor channel, Rian said quickly. If you push that pattern here, you risk a neural crash. A dead dragon will not fly for anyone. Vale cut power back with a curse. This collar was rated for full flight control, she snapped. The core lab promised it. Your rotten ring ruins every test. The ring is older than your project, Rian said, keeping his tone dull. Your control network is dense. In a clean bay, maybe it behaves. Hear the long lines echo. Complex commands will keep bouncing. You try them again, and you may fry my grid and your asset together. She stared at the graphs. Jaw tight. then gave a short nod. Fine. No more complex sequences here, she said. We keep commands simple until transfer. Standing orders, engineer. You will keep this creature alive and its leash intact until we reach the core. If anything fails, I will say you sabotaged a strategic weapon. You know what that means, Rian did. It meant a quiet report and a dead mechanic. The thought flickered through the link. Ivory caught it and shoved back a wave of fear and rage. I understand, Rian said. Vale stepped closer. I know your type, she said softly. People who spend too long with cargo start thinking it matters, start giving it names. Do not do that. This dragon is not your friend, it is a tool. Rian met her eyes. Systems that obey without thinking tend to fail when something unexpected happens, he replied. I prefer ones that still know they are alive. For a moment something sharp flickered in her gaze, then she turned away. Guards. Lock down this bay, she ordered. I will finalize transfer. We leave this ring in 40 hours. The number hit Rian like a blow. 40 hours until Ivory vanished into a core lab. When she left, the bay felt too quiet. Rian set his hand on the crate. You heard, he murmured. 40 hours. The answer came at once, a knot of fear and defiance in his mind. Ivory sent the cargo tunnel memory again. Faster now, each bend, each hatch, fixed like scars. We do not wait for them to erase you, Rian thought. We move before transfer, when they bring lifters and loosen the clamps. I trigger a fake fault in the tunnel. I open a side path. After that, we take any chance we can. He saw again how small the outer dock looked beside the dragon's bulk. It will not be clean. It was madness. One mechanic and one chained dragon against soldiers, and a project file stamped important. But the memory of the sea cliff and the white shape circling free sat in the back of his mind like a promise. If he did nothing, it would die in a lab, if he tried. It might die in the open, but at least it would die fighting. Rest, he whispered. Save your strength. The next move will be ours. The link faded to a steady wait, Ivory folding into guarded stillness. Rian walked out of Bay 12 with the sense of a clock ticking over his shoulder, and far above, in some quiet office. Project Leashwing still sat marked stable, blind to the crack growing inside it. A human who no longer believed the dragon in the crate was just cargo. Asterisk transfer day began with one short line on Rian's wrist. Cargo 7A, transfer to core vessel, 1800. After that, Ivory would be gone to a lab that erased minds. Rian spent the hours acting like a normal mechanic, checking vents, signing forms, but every thought stayed on the plan. If any step failed, the dragon left this ring in chains. The link at the edge of his thoughts never slept. Whenever he passed near Bay 12, a pulse brushed him. Ivory was awake. Fear held down by hard will. At 1500, Rian reached ring control. One young tech sat at the boards, half asleep. You've been here all day, Rian said. Go eat, I'll watch it. The tech left at once. Glad to escape, Rian locked the door and turned to the power panel. He shifted extra flow toward the cargo tunnels and marked it as a test. On another screen, he built a fake graph, a pressure rise in Tunnel 5 ahead of Bay 12. Slow and steady toward red. Step 1, he whispered. Make them walk where I choose. He opened a maintenance channel. Ring log, this is Cole. Sensors by Tunnel 5 show noise. Maybe a forming leak, flagging it. Advise heavy cargo use service 6 until cleared. Old ring. Old problem. The message fit his file perfectly. 10 minutes later, the answer came. Notice received. Heavy transfer for Bay 12 will use Route 6 until further notice. Rian let out a slow breath. They had just agreed to take Ivory through the narrow service tunnel with the weak hatch. He checked the camera map. Extra lenses watched every angle. But his delay script still ran. He added a tiny blur to the feeds near the side hatch. Motion crossing fast would smear for a heartbeat. It looked like bad wiring, not sabotage. By 1730, the ring felt tight. Rian signed out and walked toward Bay 12. 2 guards stood outside. "Transfer team's late," one said. "Core crews like to make people wait," Rian replied. The link pulsed. Ivory sent a quick image. The tunnel, the bend, the hatch. Then a sharp question of WHEN. "Soon," Rian thought back. "When they unlock you and move you. Do not fight yet. Wait for the second turn." Near the bad door, he pushed his own map down the link. A bright mark at the hatch. Ivory answered with hot focus, "Ready." The core ship docked just after 1800. The ring shook. Lights flickered. A crisp voice came over the system. "Core vessel Dernwin attached. Prepare go." Commander Vale arrived with 6 armored soldiers and the black control case. "Wait-o this fast," she said. She checked the collar link with short pulses. On Rian's board, Ivory's heart rate jumped then leveled. "Asset stable," he said. "Good." "Release clamps," Vale ordered. Locks thudded open. Robotic lifters rolled in and gripped the crate. For the first time since arrival, Ivory's prison lifted from the floor. Through the link, Rian felt the swing of weight and chain, old pain flaring in scars. "This time we turn," he sent. "Not fall." The lifters pushed the crate into Tunnel 6. Guards in front and back, Vale at the side. Rian behind with his tablet. Cameras watched from the ceiling. Always late, the first bend passed. Then another. Air grew cooler, lights thinner. The service tunnel opening came into view on the right. Narrow, marked with faded hazard paint, beyond. The main tunnel ran straight toward his fake pressure spike. Rian tapped his wrist, letting some urgency into his voice. "Ring control, call with transfer team. Live data shows pressure in Tunnel 5 ahead of us in the red band. If we push this mass through and the wall dips, we get a vent." Vale turned on him. "You report this now." "Threshold only just hit," Rian said. Showing the false graph. "If the wall fails while we're in the narrow part, we lose your asset in a pressure wave." She opened a channel. "Control. Confirm live pressure alert on Tunnel 5 ahead of Bay 12. Control confirmed at once." Trusting his numbers, worry edged the operator's voice. Rian nodded toward Service 6. "Built as emergency route, 30 meters. Then it joins after the bad section, tight but rated," Vale swore. "Route 6, she said. "Move." Guards adjusted. Lifters shoved the crate into the smaller tunnel. Metal scraped the walls. Inside, Ivory's mind flared with fierce recognition. This was the path burned into him after the crash. The service tunnel felt like a throat. Low beams, rust scars, stale air, Rian counted. First bend, sagging cable. Second bend, weak hatch ahead on the left. The one he had loosened while checking rust. His pulse hammered. 1 mechanic, 1 chain dragon. 6 soldiers, 1 commander. If he slipped now, they all died. As they drew level with the hatch, the station shuddered hard, deeper than docking. The floor jumped under his boots. Lifter motors squealed. This was not his doing. Somewhere else in the ring, something real had broken. A moment later, full alarms roared. Red alert. Local breach in outer ring, ceiling bulkheads. Heavy doors began to slam in distant halls. The sound rolling along metal, guards cursed, Vale snapped for reports. Voices came back. Outer segment, 2 rings over, hull crack, not here, but close enough for the whole structure to groan. The chaos gave Rian 1 breath of cover. He took it. He stepped to the weak hatch and hit the manual override he had rewired. The old door jumped, seals tearing. It swung inward with a scream. Cold air poured from the side passage, emergency strips inside flickering awake. "What are you doing?" a guard shouted. "Rifle turning, relieving pressure," Rian yelled. "If this tunnel seals with that crate in the middle, stress can twist its frame. Your lab will not care whose fault that is." only that their dragon arrives broken. He let the forbidden word hang in the air. Vale's gaze snapped between the open hatch and the crate. The lifters had already drifted a little toward the gap on the uneven floor. Iron groaned. Ivory's mind surged bright and wild through the link. Ready, the plan was no longer clean. Fake alerts and real damage had twisted together. The ring complained in long, low groans. Rian had the door he needed. But now the station itself was starting to come apart. One wrong move in the next seconds, and Ivory would not belong to the core lab or to him. He would belong to open space and silence, and this cramped tunnel would be the last place either of them ever saw. The tunnel shook around them, metal sang with strain. Warning lights flashed red and yellow. The crate rolled toward the open hatch. Pulled by the tilted floor, guards grabbed for rails and walls. Ivory's mind slammed into Rian's, one clear demand now. The alarm howled, outer ring breach, bulkhead lock in 5, 4, 3. Doors would seal this section in seconds. Commander Vale swore, "Close that hatch. Keep the crate on the main track." Rian moved. "If we close it, pressure snaps the frame," he shouted. "We lose control either way." He shoved his shoulder into the crate, adding his weight to the slide toward the open hatch. To a camera, it would look like gravity. Not him. A guard lunged to stop the crate. Boots slipping. In that instant, Ivory heaved under the metal. Every nerve screaming through the link, the crate lurched. Momentum took it. The guard slammed into the wall, his rifle spinning away. Lifter wheels hit the hatch edge and tipped. "Stop it," Vale shouted, clawing at the control case. She slammed full motor lock and pain into the collar. Rian felt the surge hit the twisted lines he had broken. The signal split. Sparks leaped from the case. A core blew with a crack, knocking Vale back. The crate plunged through the hatch into the side passage. Grinding metal off the frame, Rian jumped after it. The deck behind him dropped away as emergency doors slammed down, cutting Vale and the soldiers off with a thunder of steel. Her furious face vanished behind the bulkhead. He hit the floor, rolled, then chased the crate down the narrow passage. "Ivory, easy," he gasped. "I am here." The side tunnel sloped toward the outer dock. Old lights flickered awake. The crate scraped both walls. Inside, Ivory fought for control. The link burned with pain but also sharp hope. The tunnel leveled on a short platform. The crate smashed into a rusted bar and stopped. Rian crashed into its side. The tablet skidding away, he dragged himself up. Lungs burning, above, through Ivory, he felt sealing doors and rerouted power. Vale already calling for cutters and codes. The outer dock hatch waited ahead, thick metal with a round window. Beyond it lay black space and the curve of the gas giant. A small cargo sled clung to the outer skin. Rian had fixed it weeks ago. He ran to the dock panel. Manual override coal. "Code Gamma 9, he snapped. The system paused. Then accepted. Locks clanked. Inner seal cycling. Behind him the crate groaned. Plates split. One clamp snapping under strain. Ivory was done lying still. The collar sputtered as channels burned out. Flesh and machine parted in sparks and blood. The link flung each ripping moment through Rian's nerves. "Hold on," he whispered. Almost there. He grabbed an emergency cutter and attacked the warp top. Metal peeled back with a scream. Cold air washed over him as the crate finally tore open. Ivory rose from the wreckage, white scales streaked with oil and blood. Wings half folded, his body shook but he moved. Red eyes locked on Rian at once, clear and bright. The link surged. Rian saw himself as a small figure against metal. Felt fierce gratitude that was not his, mixed with a promise. A rough sound tore from Ivory's throat. Half roar, half cough, the collar hung in shards. Lights dead, alarms changed. Unauthorized dock access, outer lock cycling. Rian tossed the cutter aside, ran to the sled controls. "Ivory, onto the sled," he shouted. He sent the picture too. The dragon crouched along the sled's spine. Ivory staggered forward. Shackles snapped as he tore them free. Cables dragged and fell away. He climbed onto the sled. Claws denting plates, wings hugging close. The platform groaned but held. Rian hit release. The outer hatch irised open. Black space yawned beyond, stars distant. The gas giant huge below. The sled's thrusters coughed. Then pushed, they slid out into vacuum. Silence hit. Rian strapped into the tiny control cradle. Hands on worn levers. "We are clear of the ring," he panted. "They will track us. Shoot if they can. We need you." "Ivory," Ivory answered with a rush of sky through the link. He shifted his weight, testing wings. The sled shuddered as he forced them open, ripping away metal still stuck to his joints. White wings stretched against the stars. Torn but wide, Ivory pushed off the sled. For a heartbeat he dropped. Then his wings caught what little they could. Thin drag. Weak pull from the ring and the sled's wake. He used every scrap of lift and instinct, spine screaming, but he flew. The sled tumbled. Rian fought the spin. "Together," he thought. "You pull. I steer." He pulsed the engines in rhythm with Ivory's strokes. The dragon used the sled like a partner. Wings beating, tail trimming. Behind them, lights flared on the ring. Defense guns spat bright bolts. Ivory rolled, putting a wing between the sled and a shot. The bolt glanced off his scales. He roared in pain and harsh triumph. The link carried hurt but no fear, only defiance. Rian angled the sled toward the gas giant, where storms and charged clouds would hide them. Into the storms, he sent, showing the dive into swirling cover. Ivory answered with his own image, a human on a cliff. A white dragon circling to shield them. "You saved me first," Rian whispered, "in that ring. You trusted a human again." Ivory's answer came as a vow. They fell toward the spinning clouds, leaving the station and its guns behind. Somewhere, Commander Vale would be writing lines into a failed project file. Asset lost, 'cause under investigation. But those lines would never hold the truth of what broke Leashwing. Out here there was no asset and handler, only a mechanic and an albino dragon who had chosen each other. As the first fingers of storm reached for them and lightning flickered below, Rian felt the shape of the future settle. They would be hunted and feared, but not owned, someday. When humanity needed saving from its own worst weapons, someone would tell the story of a broken dragon who flew again, and the stubborn human who refused to treat him as cargo. And in that story, the most dangerous thing would not be Ivory's fire or wings. It would be the simple fact that trust had turned a weapon into a partner, and that choice could never be chained again.